Tarantino would say, I write better in subtitle than I do in English, which I love about him so much. There's something really elegant that you can almost get away with in the subtitle, and it's so important to make sure that you adhere to that poetry. I could say that we're thrilled to be in the Den of Geek.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
The second the movie started, I first kind of like stuck on this idea of, because I know nowadays it's easier, you can have drones instead of cranes, but I'm watching the smoothness of that shot coming down. I'm like, is it a crane still? Does he have a drone? I want to start there, and then I'm going to move into some changes after that. What was that move, that push-in?
Sure, that was a drone. It was a heavy lift drone. We shot on the Alexa 35, so this drone had to hold at least 40 pounds. And we shot on Panavision anamorphics to really geek out. And they had only one lens, they're very rare lenses, so they only gave us one lens that they would allow on a drone. It's crazy. That drone sounded like a lawnmower, Okay. And we were we started, there's in front of that motel, there's an apartment building, and we were starting the drone in front of these people's windows at 2 a.m. It's like this lawnmower going, no. But what was great is that shot actually is I had to sort of storyboard the shot when I was describing it. It's described in the script, but I had to storyboard it to carry across to production what we wanted. And it basically came out how we envisioned it, tilting down into the city, pushing in on this one window that's, lit up and almost like no one else is in the city is existing, and we were really lucky to be able to execute it. But yeah, we had great drone operators in LA to get that shot.
But I'm obsessed with this idea that they're on the outside of the hotel room seeing that happy memory on the inside. And I always have this memory as a kid of still in a crib. And I could see myself from third person. My great-grandparents are in cots in my room next to me, and I'm up, turning the lights on and off, calling for my parents. And I'm like, I don't know anymore if that's actually a memory or somebody told the story, and that's how I think about it. I'm wondering, as both visual and then characters, especially for Irene at the end, seeing those things, is that just the idea of how we see our memories, or was there something else going on there that you were trying to portray that maybe I missed? I don't know.
And it's actually written in the script that that he's always seeing the memory from the outside. And a lot of that is because, that happy memory for me, I always thought Joe was trapped in amber. It's this thing he's trying to access, but it's so idealized, it's so crystallized. It's this thing that he can't access, until Dr. Sue basically helps him. And so, visually, we were always trying to keep the camera, when he first sees it, when we first flash to it, it's sort of removed, he can't access it, but it's this thing he's struggling to bring forward to fight against all the sort of darkness whenever it sets in. And, in that session, he's actually allowed to go in, and I think what you say is totally, our mind plays tricks on us. Sometimes you think about a memory and you see a photo of where you were actually standing during that event. You're like, I was nowhere near where I thought I was, but I had this vision of, we were right here doing this thing. And I think for his mind too, he's the memories are so disassociated that he's trying to access it and trying to get to it. So I do think it's, filtered through his perceptions.
When you get into the car to call and say, oh, I sent him away. I love subtlety in acting. I don't want it to be I'm into you, I'm going over his. And so where do you find that level to make sure that you are portraying all of that to the audience and Irene as a character herself without losing it for people who maybe still don't understand what's going on?
I think the mystery of what's happening in that moment is so important, and it sort of becomes a little bit more of a thriller towards the end because he goes to bed, she starts to do this activity of cleaning. What does that mean? Is she trying to wipe away, prints? What is she trying to do? And then the idea that she says it, and I think a lot of the translation is so important. And that's something that I learned a long time ago, even during Kill Bill, that Tarantino would say, I write better in subtitle than I do in English, which I love about him so much. And there's something really elegant that you can almost get away with in the subtitle, and it's so important to make sure that you adhere to that poetry. And to say that is something that is the elegance of how we needed to make sure that moment was sort of also trapped in amber, because we want to make sure that it's a love story between her and her son, right? And there's something there's a quiet strength about Irene that is so powerful that I wanted to maintain. And I think to be able to have that strength and that malleability in how she holds everything close to the vest is so, with the irony of it, is so important. So I wanted to make sure that I stayed true to her, because in her way, she's a hero.
These are themes that can attach to anybody, but there is, whether it be a stereotype or not, there seems to be a stigma for like older Chinese families that keeping this stuff to themselves and not putting it out there is also something that was kind of passed down in a way. Is that something that also where it fits into her character, this idea of like kind of internalizing parts of it?
I mean, I wish it was just older Chinese families. Okay. I think it's very current. It's a stigma that is very much alive. And, a lot of times people will say, well, there's just a lot of pressure and a lot of stress from school, and it's going to be fine, and just keep pushing through it. And I think that's what this movie is trying to bring to light, the idea that it's something that we sweep under the rug and we find embarrassing, or we're trying to create a face that is different from what is reality. And so, unfortunately, the highest percentage of suicide is amongst Asian male young boys. And that's a real fact. That's not just in our community itself. That's, across the board. The reality is, like, what is it that we're missing, and what is the educational value that we're missing, or the understanding of what this is, and what are we afraid of?
Well, it's especially in the case of Irene, because it's like you can tell that she cares and that she's trying, but in her own mind, it's just like, this is what's supposed to be done, right? I mean, he's going to see the doctor. I'm admitting to that also. So what's the issue? I guess she's got her own stuff that she's dealing with too, but it's just like you can see her battling with it, I guess.
I think there's that stereotype of like, we're doing everything you're telling us to do. So the school's saying you need to go to the APA Family Center. She's going there. You need to go to see this therapist, and then therapist or the psychiatrist is then giving the prescription. So she's doing all the things that she's been being asked to do, but at the same time, it's not quite working, or like she's noticing something's off, right? And is it she's just witnessing it. She's experiencing it, and then as time goes on, she realizes, wait a minute, something is not tracking. So it's the counting of the pills, it's the understanding even after she finds him, after he's been missing, right, for many, many days, she thinks, oh, he's cleaned up, I'm giving his medicine to him, it should be fine. But then immediately thereafter, it's not.
Yeah, I would say too, there is this element of things escaping from Irene. As sort of the knowledge of Joe's condition starts to get out of her control, like everything starts to become more tense, like police station, it's sort of like a tsunami of like, oh, the doctor wants to connect with the school to like make these connections, it's like she's trying to keep it here inside within her grasp, and it's starting to lose it, and she's trying to hold on to that even as his condition worsens. So I think it adds a real element of desperation that, it's tough for her to manage.
Right, everything is leaking out and sort of going sideways, in addition to the pressure that she's dealing with her own health.
There's a lot of any type of issue, whether it be mental or be physical, that we all think we know what it's like, or because of whatever movies told us, whatever somebody's friend across the street told us. But schizophrenia, I think people don't realize that there are levels to it. And I'm wondering how much you had to go into it for yourselves to understand a little bit, but I'm also specifically interested in the spiders. Because to me, I think the only thought I've ever had in the previous with that, I don't know if that was just a character thing, but there is, for Cronenberg's Spider with Ray Fiennes, I didn't know if maybe that actually is something that happens to a certain amount of people, and you found that out, and that's how it came into the script.
We did a lot of research on like people's experiences with schizophrenia, and I will say one of the maybe positive things about YouTube is that a lot of people record their psychotic episodes and put it online, to talk people through it. Like, this is what's happening to me. They'll have like a surveillance camera, and it'll activate, and then they'll put that part online. It's like I started seeing things, and they'll narrate it. And so we started, something me and Lawrence like watched a lot. Like I sent him a ton of clips to like really understand like how that slippage starts too. It's not like a trigger. It's like, oh, people who live with it could sense when it's starting to happen. There was this one girl who had like a pet rat, who would like follow her around. That was her psychosis, right? And she would notice the rat here or there. And so, people imbue all sorts of things. It wasn't just spiders, but it was things that and because it had this sort of association with the day his dad, his father passed away, it made, it wasn't like, it was like talking about this issue without, talking about this issue being in his life without like just pointing out, I see this red color because my dad fell on a red rug. It's this thing that sort of occupies his mind, but because you start to learn that, it's tied to this thing with his father, that sort of lays the breadcrumbs and the foundation for the trauma.
And I think that goes back to what you said earlier about, is it the photograph or is it the memory? Is it the sense and this idea that you look at a photograph and it suddenly becomes a story when there wasn't one before, So it's this very odd thing where, and then when he's sort of doing the EMDR in the office, which most people may not recognize or understand, it's sort of that way to soothe and to not like kind of take that memory and then not be able to come back from it in a positive way.
But were there also parts for you that said, like, maybe I shouldn't do as much research because maybe Irene, she may have done her own research, but maybe there's some things I don't want her to know, so I'd rather not know myself?
I mean, for me, I think that knowledge is power. For my character in particular, understanding like the language and the culture and the physical stance and the holding herself and the deterioration of that, and the loss of her husband, because in real life he had glioblastoma, which is a very quick and unfortunate brain cancer. And the fact that they both were diagnosed with cancer at the same time, and she went into remission, and that's what really kind of triggered the son's, schizophrenia, which was something that they didn't really understand. And even when she goes to the doctor's office the first time and she says, I'm going to get better, and the doctor says, well, this is, the most maximum treatments we can do. And then she says, okay, but she's not quite understanding. So in some ways, she doesn't really even have an advocate for herself in the doctor's office. So she's like kind of half understanding because there's a big language barrier.
Thank you both so much for your time.